John Oliver roasts Jay Leno over late-night politics debate. Last Week Tonight versus The Tonight Show. In the realm of late-night television, the clash of comedic ideologies between John Oliver and Jay Leno has ignited a heated debate. Leno, in a candid conversation with David Trujillo, the head of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, took a jab at his late-night peers, accusing them of alienating half their audience by injecting personal political views into their comedy. "It's funny when you poke fun at their side and they still laugh," he mused. "I don't think anyone wants a lecture." Leno's advice? Just stick to what's funny and avoid alienating any particular group. But here's where it gets controversial. John Oliver, the host of HBO's Last Week Tonight, isn't taking Leno's advice lying down. In a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Oliver dismissed Leno's critique, stating that he would pass on taking comedic advice from Jay Leno. Oliver's stance is clear. Comedy is subjective and cannot cater to everyone. Some comedians aim for a broader audience, which is perfectly fine, he explained, while others choose not to, and that's equally valid. Comedy isn't about what you should do. It's about what people want. And this is the part most people miss. Oliver's show, Last Week Tonight, often tackles complex issues from a particular perspective, but it's not always about party politics. "Our focus is on systemic problems," Oliver said, "like gang databases, AI ethics, juvenile justice, med spas, and air traffic control. These topics have a point of view, but they can transcend political lines. Our goal is to find common ground on the problem, even if we disagree on the solution." The timing of this debate is intriguing, as it coincides with the recent cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert at CBS. While the network cited financial reasons, some speculate that politics played a role. This cancellation came shortly after Paramount settled a lawsuit with former President Donald Trump over an alleged deceptive edit of an interview with Vice President Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes. Oliver expressed his sorrow over the cancellation, acknowledging the impact it has on comedy and the staff. Stephen's hope was to pass the show on to someone else, Oliver said. "Because there are generations of teenagers who watch these shows and dream of becoming comedy writers. Colbert's writers were once Letterman's viewers, and future writers will be Colbert's viewers. We hope the show will continue in some form, but we're not sure what that will look like for network television." In a show of solidarity, Oliver and other TV hosts, including Anderson Cooper, Andy Cohen, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, and Jon Stewart, made surprise appearances on The Late Show's July 21st episode. Their hilarious reactions to being caught on camera during a parody of the Coldplay Kiss Cam scandal added a touch of humor to an otherwise somber situation. So, what do you think? Should late-night hosts avoid politics to keep their audience happy? Or is it their duty to use their platform to address important issues? Let us know in the comments below. Jay Leno's controversial take on late-night comedy. Why does Jay Leno always seem to pop up whenever a prominent late-night host leaves the scene? It's almost as if he's a late-night comedy version of a political comeback kid. Back in the 1990s, when David Letterman lost the Tonight Show hosting gig, Leno was there to claim victory. Later, when Conan O'Brien briefly took over The Tonight Show and then got fired, Leno reclaimed his spot. Now, with CBS firing Stephen Colbert and canceling The Late Show, Leno is back in the spotlight again. This timing couldn't be more perfect for CBS's new owner, David Ellison's Skydance, to signal to the Trump administration that they would have offered more viewpoint diversity, which, in this context, means more Trump-friendly content on their airwaves. And just like that, Leno reappears. For those who remember the earlier late-night battles, there's no need to worry. CBS isn't hiring Leno to replace Colbert. Instead, he's making his presence felt by complaining about the political one-sidedness in late-night comedy. In an interview with David Trulio of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, Leno expressed his frustration, saying, "I love political humor, don't get me wrong. But it's just what happens when people wind up cozying too much to one side or the other. Why shoot for just half an audience all the time? Why not try to get the whole audience? I mean, I like to bring people into the big picture. It's true that Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, and Colbert have been relentless in their criticism of President Trump. Given his status as the sitting president, his extremist views, his attacks on comedians, and his criminal record, it's understandable why they've taken such a stance. However, Leno and Trulio seem to think that late-night comedy should adopt a both-sides approach, much like network news. But these hosts are comedians, not moderators of presidential debates. With a Republican White House, Congress, Senate, and Supreme Court, the idea that both sides hold equal power is a bit of a stretch. If Leno wants to see mere jokes about Democrats, he should focus on helping to elect more Democrats. It's also intriguing to hear the CEO of a foundation named after Ronald Reagan praise Jay Leno for his even-handedness in political humor. It was the Reagan administration that abolished the Federal Communication Commission's Fairness Doctrine in 1987. This policy had required broadcast television and radio owners to provide time for opposing and varying views, ensuring that media corporations didn't monopolize political discourse. Republicans argued that removing the doctrine would expand free speech, believing that in an unregulated media environment, the free market would dictate the views and politics presented. And it did. The abolition of the Fairness Doctrine led to a media revolution. With no fairness standards or fact-checked rebuttals, Rush Limbaugh's career took off. Allowed to rant uninterrupted for 3 hours a day on talk radio, Limbaugh built a massive national following for his conservative agenda, paving the way for other successful imitators. Talk radio remains a conservative stronghold where liberals rarely succeed. Despite the absence of the Fairness Doctrine, this kind of right-wing grievance culture hasn't taken hold at the 3 major networks, especially during late-night slots, which tend to be more liberal and anti-Trump. The Trump administration's insistence that CBS hire an ombudsman to ensure MAGA-friendly views in its news broadcasts is a step in this direction. If Trump truly wanted viewpoint diversity, he could bring back the Fairness Doctrine, although that would likely dismantle conservative talk radio. Instead, imposing an ombudsman on CBS ensures that conservative views are aired where they don't naturally succeed, outside the MAGA media bubble. Jay Leno, however, seems oblivious to these complexities. In a previous interview, he claimed, as the host of The Tonight Show, "I like to humiliate and degrade both sides equally." Really? Jay Leno, the fair and balanced comedian? A 2009 study by George Mason University found that during his first run as The Tonight Show host, Leno made 4,468 jokes about Bill Clinton and 2,999 about George W. Bush, out of a total of 33,000 political jokes. While there's no reason Leno shouldn't have targeted Clinton more than Bush, or why Kimmel, Colbert, or Fallon shouldn't focus on Trump, a spreadsheet analysis of 33,000 jokes isn't necessary to determine that Leno has always been a center-right comedian. As he himself admitted, people can kind of figure out your politics if they're paying attention. Leno's right-leaning show consistently outperformed Letterman's in the ratings. The liberal slant of current late-night comedy is largely due to the unpopularity of President Trump and the viewing demographic that has stayed loyal to network television late-night programming. It's not that comedy itself has become more liberal. The podcaster comedians who supported Trump lean right. And the success of Greg Gutfeld and Bill Maher shows that conservative views can still find an audience in comedy. Even if Colbert or Kimmel were to target Democrats more, would it be seen as fair and balanced? After watching Colbert's sharp criticism of Trump and Kimmel's emotional response to Trump's re-election, it's hard to believe they'd be equally critical of liberal politicians like Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries. While they might have reasons to criticize Schumer's ineffective opposition to Trump or Jeffries' reluctance to support Zohran Mamdani's NYC mayoral campaign, such material wouldn't align with the GOP-friendly viewpoint diversity that Leno and Trump desire. When Colbert moved from Comedy Central to CBS in 2015, he attempted to tone down his left-leaning style, but this resulted in mediocre ratings. When he returned to his more political humor, often directed at Trump, his ratings soared and he secured the top time slot. In the deregulated media landscape that the Reagan Revolution created, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. And now, modern Republicans want to manipulate late-night programming to fit their agenda. It's also important to recognize that defining Leno's reign as a right-leaning joke machine isn't just about counting the number of anti-Bush and anti-Clinton jokes. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. In his own defense, Leno claimed to be a voice for fair play and civility. However, John Oliver's montage of Leno's Lewinsky jokes highlighted that Leno's civility was selective. Leno wasn't alone in targeting Lewinsky, but he had a particular talent for making his cruel jokes seem folksy and relatable. Lewinsky wasn't the only woman to face Leno's conservative jokes. Stella Liebeck, the 79-year-old woman who suffered third-degree burns from hot McDonald's coffee, was another target. Leno's take wasn't to criticize McDonald's for selling dangerously hot coffee in cheap cups, but to portray Liebeck as a foolish victim seeking millions for her own carelessness. Leno helped turn her into a symbol of frivolous lawsuits, reducing her to a national punchline. If Leno's first instinct is to side with a multi-billion-dollar corporation over a scalded grandmother, it's no surprise that he sides with President Trump when he feels that late-night comics are too harsh on him. This pattern of behavior raises questions about Leno's true commitment to balanced comedy. Is he genuinely advocating for fairness, or is he simply using the issue to advance his own interests? This is a debate worth having, and I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. 20 mind-blowing historical facts that will leave you speechless. Chapter 20, extraordinary historical facts that defy belief. Prepare to be astonished by history. It's filled with mind-boggling events that often appear to belong in the realm of fairy tales rather than actual occurrences. Imagine ancient architects constructing massive pyramids with none of the conveniences we enjoy today, or the bewildering sight of disoriented teenagers being crowned as kings. Picture entire armies marching into battle, not just with human soldiers, but with armored animals leading the charge. Just when you think you have a grasp on history, along comes a new fact that flips everything on its head. These utterly implausible incidents serve as reminders that humanity has long been unpredictable, occasionally absurd, and far more imaginative than what traditional textbooks might suggest. Our strange contemporary world, with all its quirks and surprises, is the product of unexpected events, blunders, innovations, and choices that seem unbelievable yet are undeniably real. 20. The Miracle of the Sun, a spectacle witnessed by thousands. In 1917, an intriguing phenomenon occurred when throngs of people reported seeing the sun seemingly dance in the sky, challenging the very laws of physics and logic. How could something so majestic act in such an inexplicable way? 19. The Dancing Plague of Madagascar, a community in frenzy. An entire village was caught in a mysterious dance craze, unable to stop moving regardless of the baffling cause. Why did this strange phenomenon grip their lives so powerfully, and what could have triggered such an unusual frenzy? 18. Boston's Great Fire of 1872, a city in ashes. A catastrophic fire swept through Boston, obliterating numerous buildings and compelling the city to embark on a huge rebuilding effort. The devastation was so extensive that it reshaped Boston's landscape forever. Dublin's Great Beer Flood, a sudsy disaster. When a massive beer vat burst open, Dublin found itself enveloped in a sea of foam, leading to widespread panic throughout the city. How did such a fantastical event unfold, and what were the implications for the local residents? 16. The Exploding Whale of Oregon, a sticky situation. In a bizarre turn of events, authorities attempted to dispose of a whale carcass with explosives, resulting in a disastrous mess that left a lasting odor in the area. What were they thinking, and what horrors did they unleash? 15. Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who survived 2 atomic bombs. Tsutomu Yamaguchi's story is nothing short of extraordinary. He survived not 1, but 2 nuclear explosions during World War II. What insight does his experience provide regarding resilience and survival? 14. A Year Without a Summer, 1816's chilling catastrophe. In 1816, the world was plagued by a summer devoid of warmth due to volcanic ash casting a shadow over the sun, leading to failed crops and widespread famine. How did this natural disaster impact society's structure and daily life? 13. The Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic, a joyous crisis. An eruption of uncontrollable laughter spread through communities in Tanganyika, forcing schools and villages to close down. What does this tell us about human behavior and collective phenomena? 12. The Phantom Time Hypothesis, a questionable era? Some theorists claim that the Middle Ages never really happened, suggesting that an entire epoch was fabricated and our historical timeline rewritten. Could an entire era truly be a product of invention? 11. The Great Stink of 1858, a smell that halted politics. In an incredible turn of events, the Thames River emitted such a horrendous stench that the British Parliament was forced to suspend its sessions. How could something so vile bring a government to a standstill? 10. The War of the Whiskers, a ridiculous royal conflict. A preposterous disagreement over facial hair nearly ignited a war among European royals, highlighting the sometimes trivial nature of political disputes. Is this a reflection of deeper tensions in human nature? 9. The London Beer Flood of 1814, a foamy chaos. An accidental explosion of a beer vat unleashed a wave of frothy liquid that swept through the streets, leading to an uproar among the populace and creating a chaotic scene. What implications did this incident have for public safety regulations? The molasses flood of 1919, Boston's sticky catastrophe. In a bizarre twist of fate, a tank of molasses burst, flooding Boston streets and leading to one of the strangest disasters in history. How did a sweet substance turn into such a deadly force? 7. The Pig War of 1859. A single pig stirs up trouble. A solitary pig's untimely demise almost sparked international conflict between the United States and Great Britain. What does this peculiar event reveal about the fragility of diplomacy? 6. Operation Northwoods, a chillingly wild government plan. The U.S. government devised a shocking plan that involved staging fake attacks on its own citizens to justify military action. What does this dark chapter of history tell us about ethics in governance? 5. The Defenestrations of Prague, a political tradition. In the realm of political disputes, throwing officials out of windows was an oddly common practice in Prague, showcasing extreme measures taken throughout history. What does this reveal about politics and human behavior? 4. The Cadaver Synod. A dead pope on trial. In a bizarre judicial proceeding, a deceased pope was put on trial, illustrating the very strange lengths to which humanity sometimes goes to settle scores. Could there be deeper meanings behind such unusual acts? 3. The Dancing Plague of 1518. A deadly boogie. In a chilling incident, people were struck by an uncontrollable urge to dance, leading some to dance themselves to death. What triggered such a dire and tragic phenomenon? 2. Operation Paul Bunyan. A tree trimming with consequences. An intense dispute over a tree's removal almost escalated into military action, capping off a series of absurd misunderstandings and miscalculations. What does this incident reveal about conflicts over seemingly trivial matters? 1. The Great Emu War of 1932. Surprisingly, they lost to these feathered creatures, revealing the sometimes surprising limitations of human ingenuity. How does such a failure reflect on our interactions with the natural world? So what do you think? Were any of these events as shocking to you as they were to me? Which historical anomaly stands out the most, and why? Let's dive into the debate in the comments below.